All right, Phil, we're live. Thanks for jumping on, man.
Thanks for having me. What up, Chris?
Lots of hours on Clubhouse back in November and December, so it's like really good to bring people on the podcast and actually have a kind of one-on-one conversation. Obviously, Bitcoin 2021 still recovering. I think everybody is a little bit. Um, listen to
I
your
don't think my
podcast.
voice is back.
Yeah,
Granted, I did recently wake up, so it does sound more mellow, but it was still a good solid week until I was like, oh, okay.
yeah, it was awesome to get to see people in person. It was just amazing, and like attaching people's faces to their voices and things like that. Being in all the Twitter threads and all the clubhouses and Twitter spaces. So
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's funny. Thankfully, I look like somewhat like I don't want to say like unique or whatever, but if
mhm.
they didn't recognize me from my voice, which they did, which is weird. Like thank God, like every day this wasn't intentional. I mean, it was just because I like to live comfortably. But every day I wore a tank top, and every day, or I just wore my hair like the way I wore my hair. So that
Mhm.
always helped. So you don't need like this global coordination of everyone needs to wear like a laminated Twitter button with their avatar and handle on it. So it was funny. Like they either recognized me from like my tank top or my hair. I'm like, oh, I guess this kind of worked out.
Right now, I think I was listening to your podcast. Obviously the event was like officially the whale day was Thursday, and then there was a 2 day event beyond that. So basically, it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But you got there a little earlier.
Yeah, I got there Wednesday night for
Mhm.
the beefsteak, which I think was arguably like the best night there. If anyone doesn't know what that is, basically, this guy called a Slice on Twitter, or Josh, he is like a top chef. I don't want to like dox what restaurant, but it's like one of
Sure.
those fancy restaurants in New York where you get a plate for like hundreds of dollars, and you go for like the taste, and like there's the chemistry and the food, and it's like therefore an experience, and it's just displayed all pretty and stuff. So that's what he did for a few hundred Bitcoiners, but in meat form. So he rented out this venue, and it was like a 5 course meal, kind of similar to the safety dinner, I would think, but just more people. So he rented out this venue, and there were like a dozen or so picnic tables, and everyone just mingled together. And they would bring out these courses of meals, like different cuts of meat from the cow or whatever. And it was amazing. That was my first actual beefsteak. I went to one that was like the day after, where he just invited people to like in his Airbnb, and there was leftover meat, and that was also amazing. I guess just because he left it in the oven like for just that much longer, but he is in a craftsman in his own right, and it was just really the best like um cordial, everyone gathering, chilling experience I had that whole weekend of like the entire conference. So yeah, I would recommend putting your ear to the ground if you're interested in going to the next beefsteak at whatever next event. Highly recommend.
Yeah, we ate well too. We had some Cuban food and everything else. So it was an awesome experience from the food and all the announcements. And what was like your like for the actual conference itself? Like, what was like the best time there? Like, what was the best part of your experience? You think? Which is a loaded question because it was amazing.
Yeah, no, I would say either the beefsteak or I think it was Friday. We had some people over at the Airbnb we were staying at. The pleb party was also cool. After party was fine. I didn't stay at that venue. I There was like a pub crawl that Preston Pish and Jeff Booth hosted, kind of sorta. I only got to meet Preston just briefly, but like nicest dude like you would ever meet. Like really just like happy, interested that like you're here. Like even if you don't have something to say, just have like just saying hi. Like really great dude. I think Jeff Booth like turned in early or something, so I was kind of bummed I didn't get to meet him. But it was just another good opportunity to like go from bar to bar and like talk and mingle with people that you hoped or didn't even expect to meet. Then after that, there was like um, I want to say after party, but like after the last like bar pub crawl like destination, um that place got like rained on as people were leaving, just as it is in Florida, I guess. It just rains randomly. So this was like midnight and it poured, and so as people were walking out, they had to like scurry back into the bar. And after the rain, people were just like done with this. So I went with like a small group of people just like following. I think it was like Guy Swan, Francis Poyo, but I think he went to do his own thing. But I ended up really following Gigi because he's just like, yo, I'm done with this. Like, screw this. I want to go to the beach. And me and a few other people ended up following him to uh someplace on South Beach, or like literally on the beach after we grabbed some booze to show up with at the party, which we had to like walk like 9 miles or so for like to find like the one like remaining open like liquor store. It was really funny. It wasn't 9 miles, but it was a good long
It
walk.
felt like it, yeah.
And we ended up on like this beach party that I think Rockstar Dev was hosting. I can't remember, but it was like the BTC Pay team and the Strike team and a few other people. And Ben Coppin from Spectre got I think married. I don't know if it was a joke marriage or not, but I think it was like getting like nationalized, and then he got like divorced after. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
But that was just a really fun night, just like taking scotch pulls from the bottle on the beach. And I think the funniest part of that night was I was like walking on the beach in my cowboy boots, because if you come from Texas, you just gotta like show them that you're from Texas, or if you, it's just a nice excuse to have like that extra 2-3 inches of height too. But
Yeah.
walk around in boots. And I jokingly said, like in front of Rockstar Dev, like not intentionally, I'm like, man, beach ain't no place for a cowboy, because you try walking in boots on the sand, and I would just uh I guess astonished. I don't want to say that, but it was hilarious. The hilarious reaction that Rockstar Dev had like when I said that. And so like he kept like quoting that in front of me like the entire night. He's like, dude, calm down. But I don't know, just the whole experience was a great excuse to be around people that you it was just like delayed gratification for so many months and even years on Twitter, and you just get to be enthralled in everything Bitcoin, great people, just great learning experiences. And yeah, it was a gas. It was a lot. Like, unfortunately, we didn't get to meet each other,
Mhm.
but there's always next year, or like in a few months, because I think Bitcoin 2022 is going to be in January, which I snagged my ticket this week. Uh, I don't know. I guess I'd recommend
Yeah, for
everyone else
like
to.
$2.99 or 250. I saw something
Yeah,
a couple days.
I think it went up $50 from
Mhm.
200, and I was like,
Mhm.
"What the hell is this?" So yeah, I snagged that as soon as I could, and yeah, and if the conference was too big and boisterous for you, then there's always BitBlock Boom, which is in Dallas. So I'll be at that. I was at there last year, and I think Gary Leland caps it at like 350 people, because he wants to keep it small that way
Mhm.
for reasons. I mean, the conference that we were just at is crazy. So it's a different taste, different scene. So it was good to have kind of that dichotomy, if you will. But yeah, conference, great, highly recommend.
Yeah, same here. Again, just being able to meet people in person was amazing. It was
Yeah,
just in first person for a lot of people, his first in person event in a very long time. So it just kind of had all that momentum and inertia too. So did want to say hey to everybody. So we are live on YouTube and Twitch, also on Twitter, Periscope. It can be kind of, if there's anybody chatting on Periscope though, it's kind of odd. Sometimes it doesn't pop up. So I apologize if we don't see any comments there. But you have comments or questions, we're gonna kind of just dive in a couple topics, just a few topics has happened the last month. I mean, this
yeah,
month
right.
has seemed like literally 2 years with everything that's happened. I don't think I'll ever forget where I was at that conference when Jack was on stage. And for those that may not know, Jack Mahler's strike, but and when that news dropped with about El Salvador, like it was just absolutely incredible. 70% of the population in El Salvador, they're unbanked, and quite frankly, not given much of a chance. And man, like just his emotion and the emotion of people around me too. Because I was on the I wasn't on the main stage area, but we were in like secondary stage outdoor, and just like the emotion from everybody there was just incredible. Just to hear the announcement and then just the hope it brings El Salvadorians from that announcement was just incredible.
Yeah, well, lucky you. I wasn't even there. I got scared from the sun on Friday, and
Mm,
Friday wasn't like they always say even about like live shows, concerts. Like the second day is always better than the first. So I will remember that next time I go. But Friday it wasn't as fun, I guess. I just skip out on like the 3 hour line. I got there at like 11:30 or some crap, and then yeah, just like out in the sun, got a little sunburn, and I'm like, is this what tomorrow's gonna be like? Which was not the case because there were a bunch of other speakers out in multiple stages outside as well. And instead of just like waiting like hours to like get into the inside stage where like all the big speakers were talking. So next year I will go both days. But yeah, I was actually I was I was in the shower streaming when Jack was saying his announcement,
mm,
and yeah, it really is amazing. The the whole nation state thing. I think people were assuming that was going to be like, oh, a year, 5 years, whatever down the road, but no, it's kind of like happening all once because you had like the big capital Wall Street investors or just corporation thing happen with Michael Saylor almost a year ago now, and then it's here. Like you have nation states, you have these dominoes falling. Now, what that's really going to look like and what those like countries' leaders' intentions really are, because we have to remember this, like still dealing with politicians, still dealing with humans, still dealing with people's incentives, and we're not actually on a Bitcoin standard. So you still have like fiat involved and the misalignment of incentives, but I think Bitcoin has a bigger role, of course, to play in that. I believe it's Alex Vetsky that says, or maybe someone coined it before him, but people come to Bitcoin out of curiosity or pain. And I think this thing with El Salvador is a little bit of both. So it's going to be really interesting, especially just given the history that these not only Central American, but just all these other like third world countries, banana republic countries, these nation states, and their history with, I guess, colonialism, imperialism, the American Empire. It's going to be kind of interesting, like which one is going to be next, and the reason why they seek Bitcoin as their only way out, as their way to embrace self-sovereignty. So I think it's just something that people that are in the space kind of have to really pay attention to. Like, what is their next move and how is this going to play out?
and it really does bring power to those individuals because I mean I just look at it they can now control their money and they can hold a money that's not controlled by central authority, right? And it can't be just arbitrarily inflated. I think I made a post the other day like good luck trying to figure out how many dollars there are out there. Good luck because you're never going to know, right?
Yeah.
So it's just it brings so much power to the individuals, like you're saying, the self sovereignty. And I know, we've talked about a lot of that, especially a few months ago on Clubhouse, just talking about how to be, how to read, also obviously reading Sovereign Individual. I'm still finishing that book. I have it on audiobook, about halfway through it.
Yeah.
And it just brings the power to the individuals.
Yeah, it's a monster. I mean, at the end of the day, the problem is that people don't have choice, and really the main issue is like the separation of money and state, and money is the way that we express and store and transmit value, and um, the fact that now with cryptography, we can actually protect that value, and that is really the reason why war happened in the first place is because you could just like rape and pillage the kingdom or village next door and steal their shit. And you can't do that with Bitcoin. I mean, sure, there might be a lot of like Bitcoin maximalist martyrs like myself. Like I'll die for my Bitcoin. Like at the end of the day, like you can just like threaten me with the barrel of a gun to try to like force me into give you my private key. But it's really not going to be in their interest, and the return on violence just won't be there. It won't really be worth it to them, I don't think. So Bitcoin and cryptography like really changes the game here. I don't know if you've like looked at like the details of the bill and like how like the logistics and like mechanics like of like how it works, and like the just like the relationship people will have with like their money and using the strike gap. Like, have you looked into that at all? Because if not, I'd love to talk about it.
For sure.
Yeah, so Jack Mallard, as you said, he is gonna make like the government of El Salvador like Bitcoin wallets for people to use. They can use any wallet that they want, but all the merchants will like be mandated to accept Bitcoin because Bitcoin is now legal tender there. And so the cool thing is, the interesting thing is, it's almost as if the the El Salvador government is banking on the people. And this is just like my observation, but it's kind of like they're banking on the people to sell their Bitcoin for fiat dollars to the El Salvador government, because they're a dollarized country. So that's still their unit of account. But people can transact in Bitcoin to the merchants. And so you as a merchant, if you're selling apples and you don't want to hold Bitcoin for the volatility or whatever the reason, you can take that Bitcoin that people pay you for those apples and sell it for dollars, and it's a non-taxable event. So that's amazing in itself. I'm kind of jealous, like, you know, but
Optionality. Yeah. Almost like
yeah.
optionality there. Yeah.
And so where that money is going to go is to, or where that Bitcoin's going to go as soon as they sell it on the strike, like government, like wallet, is that it goes to this trust fund. All the Bitcoin goes to this trust fund. And as the price of that trust fund reaches, I think, $150 million, like in dollar terms, but, being backed like by Bitcoin, that amount of Bitcoin, which given the price action of like the past year, who knows when that will actually hit? Who knows how much Bitcoin will actually be in that trust fund? Who knows if overnight it'll reach that? But once it hits that amount in dollars, that will go towards like tech infrastructure for the country. And, as an emerging economy, or I guess like in the textbook example, like in LDC or least developed country, which, not to like slander, or if anyone feels weird about that, that's just like what they call it. But let's just stick with it's an emerging economy. That is really revolutionary, because traditionally, a country like this would have to do is depend on a loan from the IMF that's like pretty much they would never be able to pay back. And that loan would depend on them cutting uh, cutting out their budgets for social programs like healthcare or education or whatever. And they would usually this is all in the book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins. If no one's read that, I would highly recommend. But basically, John Perkins was picked out from the NSA. He went into the Peace Corps to dodge the Vietnam draft, and he was basically like analyzing his like behavior and history and just his like portfolio, what kind of person or agent he would be. And he was picked up by the not, I guess, secondarily or in the NSA, but the root is like the CIA. But he's picked up by the NSA to basically like be a broker, go to these emerging economies, strike up relationships with the leaders in these countries, and quite literally use Keynesian economics to project and overinflate an infrastructure plan that these private corporations in America would fund, the engineering, construction, and all that, in order to build out this infrastructure program. And the way they would get paid to do that is the the leader of that country would take out a ginormous loan from the IMF, and that would go to a bank account in the United States. And it was basically almost like a money laundering act for the US. And the country is basically taking out this IMF money to pay for the infrastructure plan, and of course, all that money would not go to paying for those plans. And you can kind of guess why there was an overestimation of, like, instead of like a realistic 6 to 7% growth over the span of a year, or maybe like it's 10 years depending on how far out you're looking, it would overinflate that, as just with economic models and all that Keynesian stuff, to like 25% growth. So from that 25% growth, getting me a lot of money from the IMF. So uh eventually the country was expected to pay back principal and interest, and they would be forced to default. And that is basically, instead of after World War II, having hot wars wasn't really the best thing to do. And this is essentially how like colonialism, like imperialism continued, was through these economic methods. And if the country's leader chose to not participate or play the economic hitman game, or the EHM game, that they call them EHMs, then that's when the jackals would come in, some higher level from like the EHMs, but from the CIA, the jackals would come in, basically play the mafia boss and say, hey, we got an offer that you can't refuse, play our game. Or so this kind of stuff happened in Panama, Chile, Deem in Vietnam, and a bunch of these other countries. And this is also one of the strategies of as to why we have a close relationship with Saudi Arabia and the petrodollar. And the book is also really interesting. John Perkins basically like pimped out Osama bin Laden for this, like also like as a bribe to help with our relationship with them. But so going back to like El Salvador, this is kind of like a big FU to the IMF. Like, they're becoming fully self-sovereign monetarily. Now, whether or not that infrastructure money is truly going to go to the people, because again, we're dealing with politicians and leaders in these countries. I'm hoping for the best. I think it's going to be really interesting, and I think Bitcoin has a way of aligning the incentives to work out for the better. But at the end of the day, Bitcoin is for everyone. Bitcoin's for enemies, and Bitcoin just is. So this is really changing the game and foreign policy relations and international relations, and just what are people going to use this thing for? But I am absolutely hoping for the best, and it's really just been, of course, the last week since hearing this news, and just taking in kind of what I already knew prior to this. Just trying to piece together, and of course, these are just mental forecasts. No one really knows. It's just kind of like Hayek talked about. It's like there's too much shit going on in the world that people don't actually have all the knowledge to make accurate predictions. So I'm just kind of sitting by the sidelines, taking notes, and just really excited to see what's going to happen.
And going back to like just like numbers in general, and like the traditional economies and economic numbers that come out, and jobs this and CPI is that. We all know CPI is complete trash.
Yeah.
And even now they can't hide it. Like they've hit it as much as they possibly could, and it's still 5. It's creeping up to 4.5, 5%. So I just think that's funny. But we've been talking about that for a long time. CPI is a joke, it's a scam. For all the years they're saying it's 2%, absolute, this is just straight out lie. So, I think you're talking about like, the alignment of information and who it's benefiting,
Yeah.
And who it's not benefiting. So I just think it's funny they can
that information for them is asymmetrical, but we got Bitcoin, which is arguably asymmetrical in everyone's favor, because everyone can opt into it. But that is a really funny dichotomy when you think about it.
Yeah, completely flips it and reverses everything, because then you can run your own node, verify right there the supply, right? But CPI is a joke. But yeah, because obviously inflation finally, I mean, the last month, maybe talk about that a little bit. Like finally, there's some mainstream
Yeah.
movement about
Like,
inflation.
it's in headlines. It's like, oh, they can't lie about this shit anymore. It's here. Deal with it.
So and then that leads to a lot of macro people. Man, is there any macro investors left that aren't Bitcoiners? I mean, it's been
Warren
crazy.
Buffett.
Yeah, I know, right? It'd be the last, right? Um, what was interesting though? Didn't Berkshire buy? Man, they I can't think exactly what they did, but they got involved with a bank that's offering Bitcoin or something, and they were part of
Yeah,
the
I
acquisition.
don't know, but it would make sense if they like invested in some fund to get some exposure.
Mhm.
But I don't really know. Like, he's a smart dude. He's almost like the gold standard of investing to a lot of people and value investing. So I guess he's just that old and stubborn in his ways. So, I mean, when you're that old and you're worried about fulfilling your fiduciary duty, like, are you just stuck in your principles, or are you frankly just like that stubborn? I really don't know. It boggles my mind. It's like you don't really have anything at risk here.
Well, that and then so the other macro investors, like Paul Tudor Jones came out again yesterday, reaffirmed, what he's already said from last year, and then it finally clicked for him. And so I think basically in a nutshell, he came out and said, "Look, I've got 5% of my, either he said investable assets or net worth. I don't know what it was, but 5% in Bitcoin is what he came out and said." So it's funny listening to him because initially, like last year, because I think he got most of his position at like 8 or 9K or something like that, maybe a little bit less.
Nice.
But then he said like he saw it more like a very small single digit position, and then now here we go. About a year later, oh, it's 5%. And I think it's funny because that's the progression. Like, because you mentioned Svetsky, I had Alex on a couple months ago, and like initially you come for the money, and then you stay for the money.
Yeah.
It's kind of what he says. And it's kind of the same thing. It's like, when you first come, it starts a speculation. Like there's a 3-step process, and you can break it down maybe 5 steps, but step 1 is speculation. 2 is like a hedge / portfolio allocation. 3 is unit of account.
Yeah.
And, it's just funny to watch these macro investors go through that progression that some of us, have already went through.
Yeah. That first step is just buying it,
Mm-hmm.
because now you have skin in the game. Now you're tied to this thing, and you're kind of forced to like learn about it and what it is. And it's hard to not hear about it even in the mainstream media now. So it's all about getting skin in the game slowly, like gradually and subtly, as we like to say.
Mm-hmm.
You do your homework and you like go, oh, I can't not have more. and you just kind of like pile in, and then some people just go all in and they liquidate any other asset they have because it's the only one that really makes sense. Like, I don't know if you've had like Greg Foss on or what his
I listened
thesis
to
is.
his. Yep, it's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's great. Like, forget credit default swaps. This is the insurance that you're looking for. Like, bonds are not safe. They will manipulate those rates. I mean, it's funny. I think Nick Carter's talked about this a couple times, but like the yields on sovereign debt for El Salvador are skyrocketing. So again, it's just kind of like that upside down world that old school like financial dudes are not used to. And the stragglers, they're, as Bitcoin Tina says, they will buy at the price they deserve.
Yeah, you talked about going all in earlier, like the Giga Chad, Michael Saylor, all in with cash on the balance sheet and then issuing debt. So it's technically more than all in because then you get the 0% with the caveats to the like options to the upside for the investors that get involved with it. So it's speculative attacks and just you start with speculation and then you probably I guess the end is like speculative attack. You launch your own speculative attack. So um it's just anyway, it's just really cool to see like everybody's progression like in real time, especially the last like year. And it's just been accelerated even with, it's just amazing. I mean, Ray Dalio owns Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's just, it's huge. That is so massive. And it's so downplayed. I think that was one of the things that was, in my opinion, was downplayed, over the last like 2 months.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, the people that are publishing these stories. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, are they downplaying this news on purpose?
Oh, sorry. There was a Financial Times article yesterday. I can't think. I wish I had the author's name up. Um, but it was literally like an article from 2014 about like why Bitcoin's bad. It was just like all the typical things, energy FUD, everything else, and
Yeah,
it's too slow. I mean, he was using the too slow. I mean, that is like 7 years ago, right? And
yeah.
and the ratios. I love Twitter, man. Just all the ratios everywhere from Nick Carter and everybody else. So.
Yeah, I mean, just look at who controls the narrative, and these
Mhm,
people aren't stupid. So maybe they even know all the benefits of Bitcoin. But again, we still live on a fiat standard.
mhm.
It's all about what their incentive is and talking their book. And as Bitcoiners, of course, we're talking our book, but our book is based on truth. Our book is based on that Lindy effect, that first mover advantage, and what's in our rational economic human interest. And that's going to play out for every single person, every single investor, even if they come late. And I just think the press is just doing a disservice when they put out, frankly, those lies, or I guess to be generous, um, I guess ignorance
Mhm.
and lazy reporting. We're just not knowing enough or caring. But I think a lot of it is that they do know and they're trying to control the narrative because Bitcoin is a threat to the establishment, to the status quo. It's a threat when the majority of the population can better themselves and not have to depend on this monetary slavery that is the fiat legacy system.
So that's about Bitcoin, the asset. I did want to bring up kind of Bitcoin, the network conversation, especially Lightning Network. And then you, as a creator and a podcaster, a recording artist, what are your thoughts on Lightning Network and like companies like Breeze giving you the ability to stream sats to creators directly without an intermediary? So, for an example, YouTube takes a cut of X amount of revenue. Twitch takes around 50% for a subscriber. And I've watched my brother over the years as a Twitch streamer kind of go through all that. What are your thoughts as a creator? There were some really good conversations around Lightning, and it's really cool to see companies building on it.
Yeah, it's great. We're basically rebuilding the internet or parallel internet, and taking out those companies is like taking out the middleman. And I guess you could argue Breeze and Sphinx and whatever, they're kind of middlemen because they're providing the infrastructure, but it's kind of in the inverse because I'm just gonna say I'm the worst Bitcoiner. Like I got a node, but it's been unplugged for a while. I don't use it. I am just a trash Bitcoiner when it comes to like using the stuff every day.
Mhm.
Hodwin's using though, so I think everyone watching is down with that. But I love the idea. It's cool. I have a Sphinx chat for myself, a tribe. It's not too active, but like going back to Breeze and what they're doing, and just comparing and contrasting these centralized hubs and the I guess clear net, uh, as opposed to like dark net. But the dark net is like the real clear net because these centralized uh, hubs, powers, systems are security holes by how much data that they take from you, and you are the product, and that's why it's free. So Lightning Network changes that because you're accessing this through your own, self sovereignty. Like you are using money to access this, and it's completely permissionless. And the cool thing of it's kind of the opposite with Breeze. Like in Lightning, you need inbound liquidity, I believe, before you can send a payment. And I don't know how long this will last, but Breeze temporarily for a while that will provide you that inbound liquidity. So, like as opposed to YouTube, like taking money from you, Breeze is giving you money. Like Bitcoin as money is becoming like this commoditized like utility in order for you to transmit money, just kind of like how packet switching works online. And that's just a really cool, again, different like upside down way of looking at the world. I was gonna say something else too, but it escapes my mind, so hopefully it'll come back later. But yeah, it like this gives the creator just the power into deciding where that streaming money is going to go. It's not going to like maybe down the road, like how routing payments, you're kind of paying fees for that. But when it comes to the income that you receive as a content creator, using Sphinx or Breeze or those built-in like podcast wallet things on Lightning, the money that you have coming in, you can determine, okay, well, I'm going to get like 90% of this, but then 5% is going to go to the guy that does my art, and the other 5%, or you break that down even more, goes to like my producer or whatever. And so and all this is being fit into like the RSS feed that we have. And so it really is like a reframing, a rebuilding, a restructuring of the tools that we have on the internet, and just plugging Bitcoin into it to just make people that much more free, like adding so many other just opportunities and experiences and tools that were there all along. So this just opens up a world of opportunity to give more power and creation back to power and control back to the creator. And I think this is going to be a very long-term thing, unlike the whole bullshit NFT craze, or frankly anything else that people do when it comes to shit coins. Because hey man, a little jealous, like all the power to you. If you know how to shit coin, if you know the right people, if you know when to get in, and you know how to like shit coin to get more Bitcoin, God bless you. It's gonna work until it doesn't, though. And what Bitcoin is working on is building something that's gonna be long lasting, like built to last over time. Because unlike any other project, we are building this thing out in layers like the internet already is. You got like your physical layer, where the actual physical infrastructure, like the wires and actual like channel ish, like switching, or like I think when this was first building out, we're similar to like the telephone lines, how like you had like operator ladies like actually like unplug like one like wire into like another channel so people could actually like direct their calls. So you kind of like have that, but similar like on the internet, just like the physical layer, like pipes going under the ocean and like connecting the world. Then you have like the data layer. So, like connecting like with the actually, I might be speaking out of terms here, but you just have like these other layers that are doing specific jobs for specific tasks, like networking, like an office, like all these computers are talking to each other, and you have like these switches and hubs and everything. Then on top of that, you have like application layers to actually using like the browser and using like JavaScript, and just how we like talk to each other, like as we are, and like email, and all these things are on layers on top of the internet, and you can't cram all of this into like one single layer. Otherwise you get something fucked up like Ethereum, to where like that's how they are scaling, and it just doesn't work. And you have all this information packed in to where not everyone can run their own node and validate the transactions. So that becomes like a centralization issue, and as well as it's just not optimal to scale out. So as Bitcoiners, we're very low time preference, and we take things like day by day in our conservative, at least on the first layer, because that is what keeps Bitcoin the sound money that we desperately need. And then you can go nuts on Lightning, layer 3, whatever else, to move fast and break things and experiment. But Bitcoin's the only promising thing, that we can actually look forward to and depend on.
Yeah, one of the other takeaways on Lightning was gaming, and how Bitcoin is going to integrate. This is how I see it. Bitcoin's going to integrate into gaming. So, you're a Smash player, or like back in the day, right? So we talked a little bit about that when we jumped on. So I spent a lot of time in gaming and esports with my brother and Melee and everything else, and we've had some really cool conversations on that. Like, that's what's going to help drive. Let's say there's 125 billion people that own Bitcoin. That's going to drive it to a billion. That's going to be one of the catalysts, I think, is the integration into gaming. And like a team like Zebedee, Zebedee probably had, in my opinion, like the coolest booth.
Yeah.
And then with their technology infused, and then so you can play CS:GO and win and lose Sats, in real time. And it's because they've built on Lightning.
Man, I love that. Like thinking just like the adoption that kids are gonna experience. Uh, yeah, that's. I mean, gaming and I guess like gambling, like those are like the best ways for like any adoption, right? It's either, I guess, like gamification, gambling, or like porn. Like that's kind of like what broke the internet. So maybe the same things will apply with Bitcoin. I'm not too sure about the porn part, but yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to be like gaming has exploded, like you said, like with Twitch, and people are getting paid lucrative salaries just to play fucking Super Smash Bros. And you plug in like this more like skin in the game aspect with Bitcoin. Every time like you kill someone, like you get sats for it. And I forget which game it is that Zebedee made, but you can actually this like fight or flight situation where you walk around and you literally pick up like a Satoshi, and you actually use it as a weapon. So you can choose to kind of like like pistol whip someone, like but with like a sat in your hand, or you try to like run away with it, like capture the flag and like protect it. So it's really gonna turn things around the way people like look at money. And then your prize money you can actually take off from the game into your own like personal like self-custody wallet. So just like imagine like playing Zelda, all the rupees that you get, you can transform that into actual money, or like a golden sword, or like whatever. So this is really gonna change things around the way we look at gaming and how that just enters kind of our everyday life.
Yeah, I've talked about this a lot, like, Roblox, Fortnite, so V-Bucks and Robux and all this, centralized fiat, basically. Basically,
Yeah.
it's digital fiat centralized into a game. Well, I'd rather have Bitcoin because I control my Bitcoin. Like
Yeah.
I can do what I want with it. I didn't realize too, like, obviously, like old reward systems. Another thing I want to ask you about, like reward systems. Like 97% of, I think it's Americans, have some type of reward system, like airline miles or
Yeah.
cards and gift cards and stuff like that. And like I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's like astonishing how much of those dollars go unspent. And then
Yeah. Right.
so like, look, I'm a huge fan of Fold and Lolly, and then like earning Bitcoin. So that's the same conversation with gaming as it is with Fold and Lolly and what they're doing with like gift cards and then debit cards and getting Bitcoin back. I think all that's really interesting, and like earning Bitcoin. One other little thing that what's funny, it's not talked about a lot, is like the no KYC aspect of earning Bitcoin. I don't hear that talked about a whole lot, but obviously, like the no KYC Bitcoin roughly is what, like a 6 to 10% premium in a sense, because
Yeah.
so I found that really interesting on the earning side versus directly purchasing through KYC.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess there is KYC when you sign up like with that service in a way as
Sure.
well. But what I think a lot of those are like KYC light. So you like reach some kind of like threshold, and then they'll like KYC you more. But no, that is also a great point as well. And unlike airline miles, like the more you stack, you don't like see it appreciate in like fiat terms. And we're all about like having a Bitcoin standard. But again, that like dollar denomination, that unit bias, a lot of new coiners or no coiners, pre-coiners, whatever, are still thinking in that way. And to see that their sats are worth like that much, I think that's going to be really helpful. And yeah, it is this interesting paradigm how people are being influenced to spend in order to save. Because fiat encourages you to just spend. And I guess like you can save up your airline miles, of course, if you want to go on a long trip or
Well, then,
anything.
right, and then they expire. I've heard a lot of stories about that.
Yeah, Bitcoin doesn't expire.
You know what I'm saying?
Otherwise, you're not using Bitcoin if that's the case.
Exactly. So I think about the reward stuff a lot just because I do the daily stack on both Fold and Lolly, and I know a
Yeah.
lot of people, I don't use Bit Refill, but I'm familiar with them. So I just think more of those are going to come out. And then congrats to Fold. They just had a raise, a $13 million raise, their Series A. And, or I'm sorry, that was Unchained. So there's so many companies, that's doing really well. Like from the VC side, like they're hitting like Series A, and
Yeah.
so it's really cool to see the momentum starting to happen for a lot of these companies, especially the ones building on Lightning.
Yeah, and I think uh Naval talks talked about this, but kind of how like value investing and like investing in companies itself and like being your own VC kind of will replace investing in general, and that's almost like having secondary exposure to Bitcoin in itself. And as other VCs just kind of realize like Bitcoin is the thing. Now, a lot of these companies may not outperform Bitcoin, but it's still a safer bet to, put capital into these Bitcoin companies
Mm-hmm.
than it is like any like traditional like portfolio option. So, as more people wake up to it, you can just like imagine all the fiat that's going to pile into these new Bitcoin companies in order to change the world, because it's just going to again be the most rational economic decision for anyone that has a lot of money to invest their money into.
I've said it a few times, and like I get obviously a lot of pushback because it's like one thing to say like you should own Bitcoin, right? But there's another. It's like companies should have a Bitcoin strategy. Like I think
Yeah,
every single company, and people are like, "What are you talking about?" So most people have no idea, especially if they're a fiat bro,
yeah,
and they don't care about Bitcoin. Like they 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 don't understand it. But every company in the next 10 years, if you don't have a Bitcoin strategy, you're going to zero. That's my take. That might sound harsh or something, but you've got to have some type of strategy around the Bitcoin circular economy that you talk about a lot, and then how you can create your own circular economy for your company. I don't care if it's a startup, if a company's been around for decades. Like that's what's going to keep you relevant.
yeah, or some kind of Bitcoin standard. And I
Mhm.
can't remember if it was JP Morgan or whatever big institution, but it's like they're saying what you said, like you will have to own Bitcoin. Like it's just going to be the most rational thing that you can do. This will be like the new normal in what you do with your money.
Well, think about this too. If you're a startup and you put X amount on your balance sheet, and you've got investors that back you and you're executing, Bitcoin insulates you as a company. Is
Yeah.
the way I say this because of the upside, the long term upside. So it's like you almost like create funding for yourself.
I know, and I don't like. It's only been this past year where
Mhm.
I started to pay like a little attention of just like how venture capitalism like works in general. But it's interesting if Bitcoin is going to do what we believe and know it's going to do. Like, where does that put VCs in general? Like, do they become like dispensable almost? I mean, people that have a lot of money don't know what to do with it. It's like, yeah, sure, I'll invest in this company, but then again, aren't they just better off investing in Bitcoin? And aren't these startups just better off like investing in themselves by buying Bitcoin and maybe borrowing against that Bitcoin and like just pull a Michael Saylor move?
Yep.
It totally changes the game. And again, I'm coming at this like an ignoramus. Like I'm not like a
Sure.
finance bro. I don't everything I've really learned about like markets has just infiltrated my brain in like the past year. But I think from like my naivete, it it is an important question to raise and think about. Like, where in what you do and with what you've been doing with your money, where is that in 5 years? Okay, I'll be more generous. Where is that in 10 years?
Yeah. See, I'm around these spaces myself, and I think about it a lot from not just like from a company standpoint, but from an investor standpoint. Because
Yeah,
if
an
we truly
individual.
believe, yeah, and I know you believe this obviously, and I believe myself, like everything trends to zero against Bitcoin,
Yeah.
including like positions, like jobs. So
Yeah.
like wealth
Will
management.
you be employed in what you're doing right now in 5, 10 years?
Mhm. and positioning yourself correctly from an individual standpoint and from a company standpoint. So, I think some people like, they don't go as deep as they should. They look at it just as an asset. It should be part of a portfolio or whatever. That's almost like, it's funny to
Yeah.
say this, that now it's almost like a standard, you know,
Yeah.
but
And
it's, yeah, go ahead.
I think they fear that inevitable truth and they just
Mhm.
earmuff it, and they don't want to hear it. They kind of know it's coming. And again, I fall on the crush like, oh, Warren Buffett's just old and he's cranky and maybe he hasn't woken up, but maybe he does like care about that, which again I think it's silly, because we don't know how long like these people are gonna like stick around, but I think it's very much that they are in denial of what the future holds, and it's kind of the same argument that people have when it comes to technology replacing jobs and they took your jobs and that kind of
Mhm.
stuff, and you want that to have a successful economy, a better life. You increase the quality of your life, and you have less inputs to produce more output. It's just efficiency at its finest, and we haven't been able to. And the sovereign individual talks about this too, but we haven't really been able to reap the rewards from a deflationary economy, because as Jeff Booth talks about, like, technology is naturally like deflationary, and people would be better off if their job was replaced, if we had a sound money standard where their savings actually did appreciate and money did what money was able to do, so they would have the resources to invest back into themselves, to develop new skills, or maybe not, because time is money, and the more money you have and the more it appreciates, the more time you have to do other things with your life. And because we're on this fiat standard, we're not able to do that. And and again, this goes back to, where do the VCs stand? Where do just big investors stand? And would they have to worry about where their lives and careers are going to be in 5-10 years if we were on a sound money standard?
Yeah, one last point. Yeah, so obviously I've had a Republic, the CEO of Republic on, one of the largest crowdfunding platforms that's out there. So you
Yeah.
kind of already, obviously it has nothing to do with Bitcoin or crowdfunding platform, but it kind of democratizes where capital flows and where it
Yeah.
comes from. So it's like it's kind of happening in like baby steps, and then like
Yeah.
Bitcoin is like the last step where it's completely democratized to the individual and how they want to take their capital and deploy it directly into companies. And then the other thing is, you just like you said, I always think about the word efficient because Bitcoin makes you efficient as an individual, and then it forces you to be efficient as a company, in my
Yeah.
opinion, because you don't have to spend frivolously. In
Yeah.
fact, it incentivizes you to save. And then actually, I've noticed the last 2 years of myself, like you become very hyper focused on what you're spending. And
Yeah.
I think the same way for a company too, because you have to, if you truly are on a Bitcoin standard, you really focus on and analyze like how you're deploying the capital, because either you're buying Bitcoin with it or holding on your balance sheet, or you're deploying it to something else.
Yeah, you're kind of giving yourself this artificial barrier, because the thing that's in your best interest is to buy more Bitcoin, and any fiat that's left, how do you responsibly deploy that to make your company that much more profitable, to get more Bitcoin? And so
Mhm.
it's good to set up, I don't want to say these barriers or walls, but it's almost just, you're forcing yourself to be responsible, and it helps you create goals for yourself as a company. So
Yeah.
it's very much the opposite of what people have been used to, is just taking out debt and investing that way. And again, it goes back to what I was talking about with Keynesian economics, is just trying to reach these bloated financial goals on a strict like timeline basis, and having growth for growth's sake. And Bitcoin completely turns that upside down.
And I can't say a whole lot, but I'm working on the thesis of startups and them being on a Bitcoin standard and the
Yeah,
upside it presents for investors.
I love
It's,
it.
I've spent many, many hours. So I have more, I'll be releasing more info over the next few months, but it's, Yeah, I think it's very important for people to understand that. And I always think about the companies, how they're insulated with Bitcoin if they have a Bitcoin strategy and they know how to execute on it. It really does. It's really fascinating to me. So I'm always looking at that. We did have a few minutes, so I wanted to just grab a couple things as far as what you're doing right now as a creator. Um, I tried to listen to Bitcoin Takeover Radio. Is In the Fed your song on that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's called ETF. The way
ETF.
you search
Mhm.
that is all capital letters, like ETF. There's a period after each one, and I kind of wish I didn't do that because I wonder if that makes it more complicated for
Mhm.
SEO. But either way,
Mhm.
yeah, I wrote that. I think it like the music video came out for it in like last August, and I was inspired one by really finding Bitcoin because I was kind of like late. I'm not like some Bitcoin OG. I It really clicked for me in late 2019, and that came about from a slew of events in my life. But really, I have like Guy Swan's podcast to thank, because I was already like a libertarian, Austrian economics, and having
Sorry,
him,
that was Bitcoin Audible for those who may not know. Great.
yeah, Bitcoin Audible, great podcast. The first recommendation I have to listen to is Vijay Boypati's The Bullish Case for Bitcoin, which is now a full length book, I believe. But just a good entry point. So listening to that really helped. And then buying a VPN with Bitcoin, using Bitcoin, and realizing, oh, so the fiat in my bank account isn't really mine because I'm trying to buy this thing, but both my debit card and credit card are being denied because the VPN is like a no-no item that my bank says I can't buy. And I had to wait 20 minutes on the phone to hear this back to me and then be told I need to go contact my branch. So fuck that. Bitcoin's fuck you money that I can use whenever I want for whatever I want. And just having that, like that customer journey, that customer experience, like why buy Bitcoin? Why buy this milkshake on the way to work instead of a banana? Well, it works for this and this reason.
Mhm.
So if you just apply that to Bitcoin, it's like Bitcoin's money, the way money should be for people. And then just having all the Austrian economic stuff like click and having that re-emphasized with the Guy Swan's podcast was really helpful. And so having all that in mind, and then, you know, piecing like more Bitcoin information gradually, and then, buying more and more Bitcoin. It was, and then living through the experience of like March 12th, 2020, just, and also being exposed to other podcasts like Caitlin Long going on Pumps and just hearing all these big like macro voice dudes and going back and reading older books like The Creature from Jekyll Island and later Nick Bottia's Layered Bunny. I wanted to really piece all these ideas to get, yeah, there it is, there it is. I just had him on my show recently. Great dude, great book that should be taught in junior high, high school, college. Just engrave that because there's a reason they don't teach you money in school, and it's because
Mhm.
if all these kids knew, they would call bullshit on the system and they would go be entrepreneurs as they probably should. But
I did.
basically,
Oh,
I
sorry. Oh,
made,
sorry. Real quick, I did post a link in there as well. As you were saying things, I'm posting links for everybody if you're rewatching this, and I'll have this in the show notes as well.
yeah, yeah. But I made ETF because I wrote a 3.5 minute song for you to really um, compile, condense how I felt about Bitcoin and why it was important into one song that was hopefully catchy and hooky enough. And it's not really wordy, but for someone who's new to Bitcoin and just economics and how the financial system works, I was hoping that it was catchy enough for them to actually go read the lyrics and try to piece together what I was trying to say. And I came with the intention that there's some like Bitcoin music out there, but it's kind of corny because it's just like, yo, Bitcoin, sats, like whatever. I don't know. Cash App.
Yeah.
Uh, I wanted to avoid that and not to be like some chauvinistic asshole or anything, but I just wanted to be like more subtle with the messages and kind of make people work for it in a way, like your proof of work in a sense. And I had Richard James who made the Hard Money film. Go to hardmoneyfilm.com and it is like the in half an hour He takes sound clips from all of the great Bitcoin voices on podcasts, and he layers over that with old school like newsreels and cartoons and just this great imagery that tells the story of how we got off the gold standard and sound money and all this stuff. So he helped me produce the actual visual for that video. A lot of the ideas were mine, but because I try to make it kind of lighthearted and cartoony, like with the SpongeBob like inflatable like bicep arm, and uh when you look at it, I can tell and see there's a lot of me in it, and then he helped me formulate that and make it in this more consumable, presentable, hard money monetary history music video. And then Biko Yanowski helped do the artwork, which is this beautiful cartoon of the Federal Reserve looking scared as shit, and it's like a zombie. It's got tentacles on it, and there's this giant orange Bitcoin comet flying right into his face. And I just thought it was perfect for End the Fed. And my goal for that, if people are interested, they can go to volume 6 of Citadel 21, and I wrote a short little essay piece on my history and experience with Bitcoin and why I wrote the song. But it was just kind of a fun tongue-in-cheek thing. Like, I want to write the soundtrack to the Sound Money Revolution and quote unquote put economic earworms into people to just make them question things. So it's a rock and roll song, kind of punk rock inspired too, because as Johnny Ramone says, rock and roll was made for punks, and Bitcoin is completely punk rock. It is anti-establishment. It's to free the individual, and it's fuck you money. And that is exactly kind of what we need. Oh, and speaking of fuck you money, anyone that's new to Bitcoin for whatever reason, if you're not like been on this road for a while and you're new to Chris's show or whatever, another good introductory piece to look into after you read VG Boy Pati's The Bullish Case for Bitcoin essay, pick up Bitcoin Hard Money You Can't Fuck With by Jason Williams.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Because that was very helpful. And I had only picked that up in like February of this year, and I like got Bitcoin, but it takes a lot of narratives and the way he presents all these complex ideas into just like Joe Schmo off the street, like modern day vernacular, and just kind of says things how they are. It's really helpful to just have those different narratives ingrained until it really clicks and strengthens your conviction on Bitcoin. So those two pieces were really instrumental in helping me really fully grok this thing that we call Bitcoin even more.
So what I'll do, I'll try to get all these resources for everyone and then put them in the show notes and then the description on YouTube as well. So as we release those, just to make it a little easier to get all this stuff. It can be overwhelming, but I think you get your hands on the right resources.
Yeah.
Just 5 or 6 could do a ton. So for people, so I definitely agree. I did want to grab real quick. Where can people get in touch with you or learn more about you or kind of follow some of the content that you make?
Yeah. So I just shilled the crap out of my song. Again, it's called ETF, all capital letters, and there's a period after each letter. So E.T.F. And you can find me. My artist name is Mr. Sue. That's MR period PSEU. My Twitter handle is Mr. Sue MRPSEU. And yeah, I'm Phil Gibson. I got a podcast called A Boy Named Sue, and I've been doing that for almost 2 years. And I just started off as a libertarian first, but then I realized, libertarians are just like LARPing, live action role playing. Bitcoin is the tool that we can have to actually implement the change that we want to see in life. And the more you learn about Bitcoin, you don't just learn about like freedom aspects. You learn, like I was forced to learn about the internet and finance and just history and all this great stuff. And it is hope. People are the smartest brains in the world are actually working on this thing. So because of all those reasons, I, for over a year and a half, it's been a Bitcoin podcast. I bring on the greatest minds on Bitcoin I can to just talk about what they're working on, similar to what Chris is doing. Not to say like I'm one of the greatest minds of Bitcoin or anything, but I started the show like anyone starts a podcast is to have people on smarter than they are to just learn. And the most important thing that people can learn about right now, arguably, or fuck it, I'll say definitively, is Bitcoin. Because if you fix the money, you fix the world. And similar to the Jordan Peterson things, like clean up your room first, fix yourself. And Bitcoin definitely changes you. You don't change it. You might help advance to where it's going to be if you have that technical savviness, or even if you just want to be a kooky evangelist like me and just spread the word of Bitcoin into as many ear holes as possible. So that's what I'm working on. Just follow me and share out my stuff if you like it. You can go to etf615.com if you want to send me some sats or whatever to help support my musical endeavors. But I get people who don't like spending sats, or at least not from your stash. But if you want to support me anyway, like monetarily that way, you can do that. But if not, the main thing I can ask is if you dig my stuff, my content, my podcast, just share it with a friend, no coiner, whatever. And buy Bitcoin.
So again, we'll put all these links in the description, all that good stuff. We'll put what I am going to do. I'll make a thread on the Twitter Periscope. So that we watch it, we'll make a thread out of everything we've talked about, and we'll start doing that. Starting this episode. So, man, I appreciate you jumping on, dude. It's good to talk to you. It was good all the hours on Clubhouse. Rest in peace, Clubhouse, because much anymore.
At first, I thought it was just coming in waves, but I don't know. Funnily enough, like I'd never gone to any other hallways, but all the biggest hallways are always like the Bitcoin ones, and it's like the Bitcoin hanger-ons just so desperately wanting it to last. But we saw Nick Carter can just come in big dick swinging on Twitter Spaces and have 20,000 people on, and the president of El Salvador. So, and just imagine like the net worth that was in that space. Like, rest in peace, Clubhouse for now.
Yeah, tipping point for sure for Spaces.
But Chris, thank you so much for having me on, dude. I love this conversation. I hope your fans enjoyed it, and hopefully, I don't know if you're going to be at BitBop Boom or not, but if you are orange, then hopefully we'll definitely, shake hands, meet in person, get a drink at the next Bitcoin conference. But I loved coming on. So thank you so much for your time, generosity, and reaching out.
Appreciate it, man. We're gonna clip this out and things like that. Sometimes it's hard for people to sit for an hour. Although for me, I put it on Spotify, I do 2.5x when I listen to my podcasts. So
nice.
I don't listen as much time wise, but yeah, man, I appreciate you jumping on, and we'll catch you on the next one, man.
You bet, man. Take care.